Hi, this is Geoff with Real Progressives. It's 8 o'clock. I'm going to start in just a few moments. Give some time for people to come on. Meantime, I'll talk about my day a little bit. I hope that my voice is in good form. I've been sick for a while. I had a really bad sore throat starting the weekend. So I'm hoping that my voice is going to be okay. I had my first day back at work today and I had to talk a lot, and I think it was okay, but at the same time I'm kind of tired. So I'm hoping that my voice is clear. All right, people are coming on. Let me know if my voice is okay. Hey, Chris. I want to make sure everyone can still understand me. Had to make sure when I was on the phone today that people could understand me. Everyone coming on strong. Okay. Not starting just yet, but I want to reiterate that amongst the things I'm going to be talking about, hey April, hey Lynn, sounds okay, good, excellent. I'm going to be talking about guns again, just like I did last week, as I'm going to be doing every week. There will not be a single time you'll ever hear from me when the subject of guns and shootings will not come up. I have made the decision that for my part, in as much as I have any amount of influence at all, the subject of guns will never go away. I am tired of having another mass shooting and all the outrage, and then a significant amount of time passes and we don't talk about it anymore. I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I will never not be talking about healthcare. I will never not be talking about modern monetary theory. I will never now not be talking about guns until such time as the problem gets fixed or someone shoots me. That's the way it is. Going to give it a few more minutes. Carrie says good sound. Thanks very much. Hey, Sam. So there are a few things I do want to talk about. I've got several emails over the last week or so. People telling me their stories, telling me about things they would like me to talk more about. And to a large degree, I have mentioned these things before. Hey, Teresa. To a large degree, I have spoken about these things before, but I will pay a little bit more attention to them. Yeah, it looks like we're getting people on. Okay, I'm just going to start. Hi, this is Geoff with Real Progressives. And there's a few things that I want to talk about. Like I was just saying, I've had several emails from people. They just want to talk. They want to unburden themselves. They would like me to go into more detail about things, talk a little bit more about certain things. So that's what I'm doing tonight. And one of the things that I want to talk about is the way that healthcare, as currently provided, dominantly through your employer, really enslaves the population. Just think about your own lives. Those of us that are lucky enough to have healthcare. Now, I love my job. I do. I really do. It's rewarding. And I love helping people. To whatever greater or lesser degree I'm in a position to help someone, there's no better feeling. You know, especially in a healthcare setting, in a doctor's office setting. I'm not even in urgent care, but in cardiology where I work, there's a lot of fear. You know, I had chest pain. What does that mean? You know, I've got this sensation here or there. People come scared, and I get to be, to a greater or lesser degree, at the very least, a comforting presence. And that is rewarding. But that doesn't mean that I wouldn't want to do more, maybe do different. I mean, how many people are in a position where they're in a job that they hate, but where are they going to go? Because that's where they get their health care from. In my particular case, I need health care for myself. I'm going to be 50 in a couple of years. I'm actually relatively healthy. I'm leading a vegan lifestyle. My blood work is pretty good. I feel good. But just by virtue of the fact that any kind of accident can happen anywhere, any kind of illness can befall me of any description, I won't even bother going through a list. We'll never leave. So I need health care. But if it were just me, I don't know. I got a feeling in my heart that says I'll be okay. And, if it was just me, maybe I would just forego it in lieu of maybe going and doing something else, being an entrepreneur. I was a professional musician for years. I wouldn't mind doing that again. But there are certain avenues that are restricted. The older we get, the more we look mortality in the face, the more we really kind of need that health care. But mostly, it's not just me. I got a family. We got pre-existing conditions. I can't do without the health care, without the health care benefits that I get through my job. And my job, as opposed to a lot of other ones, the health care benefits are actually pretty good. They're pretty damn comprehensive. So if I were to leave this job, I know damn well, no matter what other avenue of employment I would choose to do, assuming that it had health insurance, that there is very little chance it would be as good. Trust me, I know, because I got people coming in all the time, and they're talking about what their health care doesn't cover, which is so much. So many people have health insurance, but it barely covers the basics. They got health insurance. That doesn't really cover much of anything. Their prescription drug coverage is for shit. Their urgent care is for shit. Anthem right now, as a major player in health insurance, you probably have seen this before. Anthem is starting to deny people care at emergency facilities. You can't go to the ER if it's not what they consider to be an emergent issue, a life-saving issue. So you can have chest pain, crushing chest pain, coupled with difficulty breathing and all manner of, profuse sweating. And what are you going to be thinking? You're going to be thinking you're having a heart attack, right? Because there's a very good chance if you have symptoms like that, that is exactly what you could be facing. So you do the responsible thing. If you think you're having a heart attack, you don't call your primary care doctor. You don't even call your cardiologist. You sure as shit don't go to an urgent care facility. They're just going to take you to the ER. You go to the ER. That is the place you go if you think you're about to die. Because that is the place that has all the equipment that they need to fully diagnose you and deal with whatever it is that you got going on. But Anthem, in their wisdom, have decided that they want to curtail all these people that are going to emergency rooms and using it like it's their primary care doctor, which, granted, they should not be doing. But Anthem, you're part of a system that doesn't like to cover primary care office visits. You like to make it fucking expensive for people. You're not part of the solution. So you don't want them going to the emergency room to, have that be their primary care doctor. Fair enough. But someone who thinks they're having a heart attack, they're going to go. And in many cases, you probably have seen the articles where people have been stuck with $12,000 ER bills because Anthem, once it was discovered, you weren't having a heart attack. You had acid reflux, which any cardiologist will tell you, or any gastroenterologist will tell you, can easily mask and mirror symptoms of a heart attack. It's fucking horrific to have acid reflux. It's terrible. It makes you feel like you're going to die. And you are not a doctor. You are not a clinician. You've got Dr. Google and WebMD telling you that with your symptoms, you're going to die, so you go to an ER. And Anthem, to be able to save their money, they don't look at your admitting symptoms, they look at your discharge diagnosis. And the discharge diagnosis was acid reflux, GERD. It wasn't a myocardial infarction. It was not a heart attack. So you know what? You weren't in danger. You weren't going to die. You shouldn't have been in an ER. You had chest pain, crushing chest pain. You had profuse sweating. You are supposed to know that it was acid reflux, as in 100% certainty. And you were supposed to, therefore, go to your primary. God forbid it should happen in the middle of the evening. You just know where you can go. So you're supposed to suffer until you can actually get in with your doctor. And here's another thing. A lot of doctors' offices, they try to have some open spaces in the course of their day to fit in patients that have emergencies. Those fill up pretty fucking fast. There's a lot of people out there. So we'll get to the idea of why, that is when I get to the second part of what I want to talk about. But this is the system that we're up against. The system that doesn't care if you're sick. The system that doesn't care if you think you're about to die. The system that only cares about how much is it going to cost me, the insurance company. I'm in business, baby. I'm in business. And business is about profit. You want to be a capitalist? I got problems with capitalism, because capitalism, in and of itself, says I need to make profit. I need to make as much of it as I can. And anyone or anything that gets in the way of that, well, you're killing the market, baby. You're killing the market. You're choking the market. How can we be free? How can we unshackle ourselves and really manifest our destiny if I can't make as much profit as I want, as I physically can? That's what capitalism is. No empathy. No compassion. No human emotion. We have to put those things in. We, as humans, imbue cold, calculating economic systems with those emotions. It's called regulations. And Reagan harkered in the era of deregulation. Don't level the playing field. Let those that already have money and power leverage that money and power to grab more and more and more. Does this sound like the system you want to have in charge of your life and your death? The only thing that you should be able to expect when you walk into a doctor's office or into a hospital is that their first question is, what is in the best interest of my patients? That's it. There should be no other question so important that it eclipses that one. But if you are an insurance company, if you are a for-profit capitalist company, your first question is always going to be, how do I make the most money? And Anthem's solution, make the most money by making sure that people pay their premiums and then denying them as much care as possible. Denying them. And what a wonderful way to go about denying them care. then by telling them that things have changed, you can't use the ER unless your life is threatened. It is a life-threatening situation. And by the way, you're not a doctor. You didn't go to medical school. You have no fucking idea what your symptoms mean. For all you know, you could be dead in 5 minutes. You don't know, but you've got chest pain. You've got all manner of symptoms that WebMD and Google are telling you could be a heart attack or a stroke. So you go to the ER. And Anthem plays a wonderful little game and says that it's not your admitting symptoms that we are going to pay attention to. That's not where we're going to base the decision on whether or not to cover it or not. We're going to base the decision on the discharge diagnosis after you've gone, after you've already had your services rendered. Now when you go to the ER, you have to beg and pray to God that you were actually about to die. I've mentioned this before, but there are 2 studies out there that say that 30% of Americans can't afford a $500 emergency, and fully half to 60% can't afford a $1,000 emergency. So imagine your surprise if you have these crushing chest pain, you think you're about to die, you go to the ER, they take care of you, as is their mandate. They don't cure you, they stabilize you. So if you do have a chronic condition, you keep going back to the ER, they will save your life, they will stabilize you, and then they will send you on your way. So you have these symptoms, you think you're going to die, you go to the ER, they examine you, they test you, they tell you it's acid reflux, take some pills, you'll be fine, follow up with your gastroenterologist. Depending upon your insurance, the copay for emergency room is on average about $100. On average, give or take. That's expensive. To a lot of people, that is expensive. But you find the money, and you do it. Then, weeks later, not the next day, weeks later, you get a bill from your insurance company. $2,500, $10,000, $12,000, whatever it was. In the case of the ones that I'm thinking about, it was $12,500. Because the discharge diagnosis was not a life-threatening diagnosis. Ergo, you shouldn't have been in the ER. Now you're on the hook for almost $13,000. What the fuck are you going to do now? Gonna go to your job and ask for a $13,000 raise? A $13,000 advance on your next 20,000 paychecks? You work at Walmart. What the fuck are you going to do? The Walton family don't care about you. Guaranteed. Richest family in the fucking whole United States of America. And all their employees get paid the least amount possible. Which is pretty goddamn low. No health insurance. You went to the ER. Or more specifically, if you had health insurance, you go to the ER, now you're on the hook for all of it. Because you don't know. Because you don't know. But this is what Anthem is doing. And it looks like a lot of states are looking to make this part of Medicaid. So not only is this happening, it looks like it's expanding. The whole idea is expanding. That you now have to be a doctor. Remember what I said in my very first live stream, the fucking GOP. You have to be better consumers of healthcare. You are supposed to be vetting doctors and hospitals. You're supposed to know what all these things cost. You are supposed to be aware of what all these things cost. Every possible symptom and diagnosis you could possibly have, you better have an encyclopedic knowledge of what all the cost is going to be at all the different locations you go to. Let's take an Apple computer, for example. It's one of the few examples where the cost of your individual product is going to be pretty much exactly the same no matter where you are in the country. Apple keeps its prices pretty goddamn consistent, keeps its margins pretty low. But you can't do that. It is the exact opposite with healthcare. The hospital in location A is not going to charge you the same for the exact same service as hospital B, C, D, and E. And that's just within your own immediate area. God forbid you should be in a more affluent area or a less affluent area. The differences are fucking staggering. And if you want to actually vet these hospitals for how much these things cost, good fucking luck. Because fee for service means that they want to charge you for every aspect of what they do. Every aspect. Nothing is included. You have to have your appendix out. That is not simply having an appendectomy. They are going to charge you individually for every piece of equipment, right down to the piece of gauze. They're going to charge you the facility fees, the hospital fees, the operating room fees. They are going to charge you the fees for the surgeon, the assistant surgeon, the nurse, and the anesthesiologist. Everyone is going to get their piece of the pie. And those numbers change facility to facility based upon what they think they can get away with, because they're not actually charging you, they're charging their insurance company, the one they have a contract with. And the insurance company is just simply going to hand over the money. It's easier for them to do that than to lose the contract. But if you don't have insurance, they'll charge you full price. They'll charge you everything. Because it's all about money. It's not about care. They're turning doctors into salesmen. More and more doctors are learning how to play the game. Learning how to play around the margins, to be technically within the law, but they are in the minority. But that minority is growing. That is what fee for service does. And that's what you get with private health insurance. When the main entity that pays for all the care, when they are the ones responsible for paying, you don't get good care. You get the best care that money can buy, except they don't want to spend their money. They want you to continually pay them their fees, pay them their monthly fees. This is one of the reasons why it was such a windfall with the ACA. When I first looked at the ACA, when it first came on the market here in New Jersey, you were only mandated to have insurance. In the New Jersey health exchanges, we had plans that literally would cost you $5 a month. They covered fucking nothing. Your deductibles were so fucking high. It was unbelievable. There was no way, unless you were hit by a bus and your care was going to cost millions. But who the hell cares? You'd still be an indentured servant even if they saved your life and you fully healed and fully recovered. That first deductible you'd have to come up with. Who has that kind of money? But still, $5? If everyone in the country paid them $5, that's still a fucking windfall of money. That is a huge amount of cash. So having plans of that nature on the exchanges, you'd pay $5 to avoid having to pay the penalty on your tax returns. That's a win for you. But you didn't actually have insurance. It's junk insurance. It's for crap. But that's what insurance companies that are engaged in healthcare, honestly, that's all they care about. Keep giving me money every month. Keep giving me money, and my first job after I have cashed your check is to make sure that I never pay for anything if I don't have to. Because that's fee for service. That is for profit. And if we want to get out from underneath that, we have to insist on single-payer health care. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, that gets to be expensive. Who can possibly cover that? You're going to have to tax the rich. We're going to have to cut programs. It's going to be massively expensive. To which I say two things. First and foremost, yeah, it's going to be expensive. It's going to be expensive in as much as we're going to have millions of people using the system that currently can't. So that's going to be a huge demand right there. That will cost money. Then we will have tens, if not 100 million or so, that will use the system more because there were so many restrictions on them with their private health insurance that they just wouldn't be able to have afforded it. There would have been so many co-pays and there would have been so many deductibles. They just never would have been able to do the things that they had wanted to do that would have been medically necessary. They would have rationed themselves. So there would be a ton more demand. So yeah, and someone's going to have to flip the bill for that. And here's the thing, for the vast majority of the people in this country, hopefully a shrinking number of people in this country, they think that their taxes are going to have to go up to pay for this. They're going to hope that it's going to be the rich that are going to be taxed the most, and we're going to get all this money, all this revenue at the federal level, and we're going to be able to afford single-payer health care. That's not how it works. That is not how it works. Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution states unequivocally that the United States Congress, and only Congress, creates the dollar. It creates it out of nothing. It sets the value for that dollar, and it enforces the need for that dollar through taxation. There's a lot of evidence to support this. There's a lot of educational documentation, a lot of a large body of scholarly work on this. Real Progressives has a ton of it available on their website. Check out Stephanie Kelton, check out Warren Mosler, check out Joe Firestone, Steve Grumbine, Ellis Winningham, Mike Norman, just on and on and on and on and on. There's a lot of information, and for those of you watching me right now that don't know this information, I'm going to do the briefest of explanations right now, because a lot of other things I want to get to. But definitely come back to Real Progressives, go to Deficit Aloes, find Stephanie Kelton. There's so much information out there. Educate yourselves and educate your friends. Educate as many people as you can. Even if you don't have the ability to explain it, just send them to the information. Bring that horse to water and watch it drink. But as a brief explanation, the federal government, the United States government, has no fiscal constraints. It can pay for whatever it wants, as much as it takes, as long as it's for sale in its own currency. Now, there are actual restrictions, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, but from a financial standpoint, if the question is how much does it cost, the answer from the point of view of the federal government, the issuer of the dollar, the answer to how you're going to pay for it is appropriations. Congress will simply decide what they want to do. They will decide how much they want to spend. The president signs the bill, and the Treasury and the Fed get busy crediting accounts and paying that money that they have created to those entities that will carry out the business of X, Y, and Z, whatever it happens to be. We want to do Medicare for all. We want to be able to pay doctors and hospitals and pharmaceutical companies and medical manufacturer companies. Everyone sends us the bill. Congress decides how much they're going to spend, and these entities get the money. Congress creates it, Treasury authorizes the spending, then the Federal Reserve makes deposits and sets up reserve accounts, and people get paid. It's the only trickle down that actually works. So Congress, in creating the dollar, also sets the value. Now, this is why we don't have financial constraints. They set the value. There was a time when we were on a gold standard. What does that mean? It means that the dollar was not simply worth $1. It was actually worth something else. You could say that for the sake of simplicity, let's say that the dollar was going to be worth 1 pound of gold. That is a very expensive dollar, but for the sake of argument. So the dollar is worth 1 pound of gold, okay? And the United States Congress, the government has 100 billion pounds of gold. So we can only have $100 billion in circulation, because the idea is that if you took these dollar bills that Congress created and then told you exactly how much it was worth in this other commodity, there is a time when you might go to the Federal Reserve and try to exchange your dollars for gold. And if people started doing that en masse, they had to make sure that there was enough gold to meet that demand. So they had to make sure there was only ever $100 billion in circulation if they only had 100 billion pounds of gold, assuming a 1-to-1 ratio. So we did have actual constraints. We couldn't spend more into the economy than we took in because we had to defend those gold reserves. So there was a time when we may have had to borrow gold, buy it, go to a war and acquire it. Taxes that we would come back would actually go towards helping to fund some things, not because we needed it, not because the federal government couldn't create it. They had to make sure that they only had a certain amount of money in circulation. Well, Richard Nixon took us off the gold standard in 1971. What did he replace it with? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It is now a free-floating fiat currency. $1, $1 is worth $1. If you go to the Federal Reserve and exchange your $20 bill, you're not going to be getting gold. That might make some change. They'll give you 2 10s, a 10 and 2 5s, 21s, a whole fuckload of pennies. They'll give you all manner of things, and if you want to buy other debt instruments, if you want to buy gold, you can do that. You want to buy other foreign currency, you can go to a regular bank and do that. But your dollar to the federal government is only worth $1. $10 is worth $10. That's it. So what does this mean? This means that the federal government can now spend as much as it needs to from an operational standpoint. Like I said, there are constraints, and we'll get to that in a moment. But from an operational standpoint, there is nothing keeping the federal government from spending as much money as it needs to be able to do what it wants to do. Now, you can see this in operation. Modern monetary theory is not something that we want to implement. Modern monetary theory is simple currency analysis. It describes the system, all systems. It describes dollar creation, dollar circulation, and dollar death. So if we want to see modern monetary theory in action, every time Congress spends, every time they write a bill, you're seeing it in action. Let's take the military budget as an example. They just recently raised the military budget $800 billion. Did Republicans put up a fight? Did they say, no, we're not spending that money, it's fiscally irresponsible, and we're not going to do it unless we cut programs. We have to find the money. No, they didn't. Did Democrats say, no, we're not doing this. It's fiscally irresponsible. We're not going to do it unless you find a way to pay for it. We're going to have to raise revenues. We're going to have to tax the rich. No, they didn't. It was one of the fastest bills, the most universally accepted bills, and it was done. And it was more than the Pentagon was asking for. It was more than the White House was asking for. They just kept putting money in there. How could they do that? How could they do that if there's actual monetary constraints? They wouldn't be able to. They would have to have taxed first. They would have to have found the money somehow. But a government that is sovereign in its own currency never has to tax first. It can't tax first. It creates the money. It creates the money. How could it possibly tax before it could spend? If I'm creating Geoff dollars, and I impose a tax obligation on you, how can you possibly pay me taxes if I haven't given you the money first to begin with? I could either just give it to you, or I could employ you. I could give you a job, pay you all kinds of money for that job, and then take a portion of that back in taxes. Thank you very much. And it's that tax obligation that makes the dollar worth it. If you have a sovereign federal government that controls its own army or can raise a militia, can find a way to enforce a tax obligation on you, at the end of which is deprivation, prison, garnishing of wages, we can force you to pay. Well, you're going to pay. That's the way it's going to be. Because you don't want to go to prison. You don't want your stuff confiscated. You don't want to have your wages garnished. You're going to come up with that money. So you're now in the business of finding US dollars, right along with everyone else. And welcome to the US currency. Everyone's in the business of chasing dollars. It has a side bonus of being able to be used to exchange for goods and services all over the place. But its primary reason for being so valuable is that you need it for the one thing you can't barter your way out of. You can't negotiate your way out of. You need tax credits. And that's what the US dollar is. Wonderful little tax credit that you can do other things with. So we can afford Medicare for all in the same way I demonstrated that we could afford an ungodly amount of money for the military. We simply decide to do it. We decide that this is important. That 45,000 people dying every year because of a lack of access to health care. Dying every year. We decide that 220,000 people dying every year as a direct result of medical errors, which is the direct result of fee-for-service, which is the direct result of for-profit healthcare. We decide that those are travesties of justice, that is a black eye on the red, white, and blue, that whatever God you believe in is not looking down upon you kindly for allowing that system to continue. We decide that we insist on single-payer health care because the U.S. government is the only institution that does not need a revenue stream. It doesn't matter how much it's going to cost to cover everyone, womb to tomb. It doesn't matter. Let it cost as much as you want it to. Let doctors be the highest paid in the land. Let pharmaceutical companies make an incredible amount of money. Fine, whatever. We can have that argument about whether or not it's moral what they're doing. And in my opinion, it's not. But let's not have that argument before we cover everyone. Because the federal government can afford to cover everyone right now. For everything. And if you want to negotiate prices with the federal government, by all means. But that is going to be a longer argument, and the longer you take to get to where we need to be, people are dying. So step number 1, fuck off. Stop having that argument. Cover everyone right now. Do it because you can, and it's the only moral choice you have. Second law, then negotiate prices after the fact. Because the federal government can pay as much as it needs or as little as it wants. But when someone's house is on fire, you don't negotiate the price of water. You put it out. When someone is drowning, you don't negotiate with them before you save them. You save them first. And no one is saying that these institutions should not make a great living. But that is not the conversation to be having first. First, you save lives. First, you cover everyone. No excuses, no exceptions. It is a right of birth. How do we know that? We decide it! The Bill of Rights, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they were chosen. We hold these truths to be self-evident. We hold these truths. God did not come down upon the mountain and said, thou shalt have these rights and no other rights. We decide collectively our destiny. Freedom of speech is not an inalienable human right because God says it is. It's an inalienable human right because humans collectively said that it was. And those same humans also said that blacks were less than a human. That women were property. They also said that, Native Americans were kind of a bummer. Taking our land before we got here. And we should do something about that. So when we talk about rights, when we talk about the Constitution, this is going to come up in a little bit. We have to remember that the original framers of the Constitution, they were fucktards. They had some nice ideas, but by virtue of the idea that those ideas were designed to apply to them and people that looked like them makes everything suspect. The fact that they had to enact the Bill of Rights before the ink on the Constitution was even dry indicates that even they knew that they weren't done, that they had to keep going, they had to keep fighting, they had to keep working. The preamble of the Constitution, we the people of the United States of America, in order to form a more perfect union, we're not done. Look around you. Do we have a more perfect union now? No. No, we don't. So we keep going. In order to form a more perfect union, establish justice. Do we see justice around us? If you are African American, tell me about the justice you are seeing right now. If you are Native American, tell me about the justice you have ever seen since we came around. If you are a woman, tell me about the justice you are seeing. I would like to know. Because me, in my white privilege, I don't see it for anyone else. Establish justice. Ensure domestic tranquility. How can we have domestic tranquility? If I am worried that there's going to be a sickness that is going to impoverish us, that is going to drive us from our home, and we have health insurance, that is not domestic tranquility. That is domestic terrorism. Provide for the common defense. Got that one covered. Largest military in the fucking world. By a magnitude. That we can afford. That is not a problem. That everyone in the White House agrees. Why? Because it makes someone a shitload of money. Always remember, the federal government needs no revenue stream. Ever. But private industry does. So anytime they want to privatize something, they tell you it's because government can't do it efficiently. Not like private enterprise. Fuck that. Government is as good or as bad as the people that populate it. You want to have good government, efficient government, send good and efficient people. And they'll do it better than anyone because they are people just like the people in the private corporation. But private corporation wants to make the profit. So they purchase Congress, they change the narrative. Government is your problem, so saith the Saint Reagan. Government's not your problem. Shitty government is your problem. Shitty people in Congress and the White House are your problem. So every time they want to privatize something, they're not saying it's because government can't do it and they can. What they're saying is government is not making any money and there's money to be made. Private industry wants to make that money. They want that buck. And they can't just simply take it. They have to convince us to give it to them. So they tell us a story. They tell us that government is your enemy. Government is not your friend. Government is trying to be tyrannical. Government is trying to take everything from you. So don't give it to government. Give it to us. Only we love you. We love you long time. That is fucking bullshit. That is them handing you the chains and you happily clasp them on. And it doesn't matter what color you are. There's a private prison and a hell just for you. If you're black, they'll show you the bars. If you're white, they got nothing to show you, but you're in jail nonetheless. You are trapped. Trapped in a job that you don't love. Trapped in a job that you hate. Trapped in a living situation you can't leave because you need health insurance and people are looking out for you. People are counting on you. You need that shit. Single payer isn't going to not happen because it's too expensive. It's going to not happen because private industry needs to make that money. They need to make that bank, yo. And government is paid specifically to make sure that they never lose that bank. You having single-payer health care, that's power. That's money in your pocket, even if by only virtue of the fact that you don't have to spend your money on it. Because your tax dollars don't pay for shit. To a federal government with a fiat currency, sovereign in its own currency, they don't need your tax dollars to pay for anything. They need your tax dollars to make sure that you need their tax credits. You pay taxes to make sure that the currency is valuable. Something is valuable when it is wanted, when it is desired, and you need, want, and desire that money. Because you need to pay your tax obligation, even if, after all this time, no one thinks of it in those terms anymore. That doesn't change the fundamental underlying reality that your federal taxes don't pay for anything. Why do you think the federal government wants you to believe that it does? Why do you think the federal government wants you to think that they are just like a household, just like you? Because you understand household budgets. You can't spend what you do not have unless you beg, borrow, steal. So they get you to believe the lie, so you don't ask for more, so you don't demand more. Because if everyone in the country understood, there would be no not having single-payer health care. You understand that they are keeping you sick and poor so that someone else can be rich, affluent motherfuckers. Don't misunderstand me. I am not against rich people. I don't care that they have money. I care how they got it. I care what they do with it. And I care about what they do to make sure that they keep it. You could be fantastically wealthy and a perfectly nice person and be incredibly affluent and spend the vast majority of your money on, philanthropy and bettering the lives of people around you. That's fantastic. And for those people that are rich and are affluent, in that regard, are extravagant in that regard, giving back to communities, please do more of it. There will always be a need for that kind of activity. But no matter how rich you are, you cannot solve the problems of healthcare, infrastructure, education, green energy. You cannot employ everyone. There is but one entity that can do that because money is no object. But I promised an explanation of the restrictions, and that's an important thing. It's very important. As important as understanding that the federal government creates the money and therefore has no financial constraints, it is also equally important that you understand that there are, in fact, restraints. And that is inflation. Inflation is going to happen if and when we have too many dollars chasing too few goods. As a simple example, the cost of bread will go through the roof if, for whatever reason, and I can outline a couple of reasons how that might happen, if everyone has money, lots of it, and there's actually not that much bread production. So there's not that much bread, but everyone's got money. Everyone wants bread. Everyone keeps buying bread, wants bread, wants bread, wants bread, wants bread. I got the money. Money is not a problem. Where's the bread? Well, if there's not that much bread to have, the cost of bread's going to go through the fucking roof. That's inflation. Now, that can happen in a couple of ways. Most people worry about inflation when you have too much money because they see places like, Weimar Germany, having hyperinflation, and they see printing money. They'll see Venezuela having a similar problem. They will see Zimbabwe having a similar problem. They don't look at the underlying reasons. Weimar Germany had a productive capacity that was decimated after World War I. They had to pay back reparations in a currency that was not their own. So yeah, they had hyperinflation because they had production leakages. Same thing with Zimbabwe. They had their farming system decimated because they handed it over to people that did not know how to farm. So they had to keep importing all this food, and prices just kept going up, and the Republic just kept printing more money trying to keep up with it. But printing money, if you have no production, doesn't fix the problem. The United States doesn't have that problem. The United States has tremendous productive capacity. Tremendous. We are the richest resource country in the world in real resources, including human resources. So, everyone has money. And everyone wants bread. The question becomes, can we increase bread production? If we can, great, no inflation. If we can't, can we import it? Yes, great, no inflation. No, we can't increase bread production. No, we can't import it. Well, then now we got a problem. And now we have reached the ceiling of how much we can spend into the economy. Now we'll have to pull back. Maybe taxes will go up, suck back some of that demand. You don't have as much money in your pocket, therefore you can't spend as much. Maybe we'll float some bonds, put some IRAs out there. There's any number of ways the federal government encourages people to save. If you're saving, you're not spending. Those are demand leakages, once again. So there's a number of ways we could do that. So we do have actual constraints. That's why we need to send people to Congress that understand the macroeconomy. People that understand that the federal government is financially free. It has no constraints. It can pay whatever is necessary, but also has the foresight, the vision to say that we need to make sure we are a productive nation now, and we need to make investments in our future. Are we spending money wisely to make sure that we are still going to be a productive enough society in the future so that all this money we're spending will have real resources to purchase at the end, so that we don't have inflation? But I'll let you in on a little secret. I would rather have a little bit of inflation that we can handle than have 45,000 people die every year and have 220,000 people die, third leading cause of death, medical errors. I would rather have a little bit of inflation than have to live with that. Inflation or austerity. We know exactly how to get austerity. We're fucking having it right now. We haven't really tried inflation. Japan is trying inflation. They've got a deficit to GDP ratio of 250%, and they can't get inflation. They're trying to get inflation, and they're not getting there. So let's give it a shot. MMT doesn't need to be implemented. MMT needs to be recognized by the population, recognize where it is being utilized and where it is not. Or more specifically, where it is being used to private enterprises' benefit and not to ours. I bring you back to the preamble. We, the people of the United States of America, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the general welfare, provide for the common defense, and ensure the general welfare. They have a mandate to pay to us. They have a mandate. It's there in the preamble. The first genius of the Constitution is that within the preamble itself, secure the blessings of liberty. Can't have the blessings of liberty if I watch my friends, my family die needlessly. That's not the blessings of liberty. That is the lash of tyranny. If you have the ability to save lives and you choose not to, you're an austere, murderous motherfucker. We're not looking for handouts. We're looking for a federal job guarantee. We want work. We want to have something to work towards. We want to look forward to something. We want to have our lives enriched, and we can do it. We can do it. It's not about the federal government doing it for us. We are the government. We choose what kind of system of government we live under. We, the people of the United States of America, not we, the oligarchs. Right now, the oligarchs are making all the decisions for us. They are the ones in the driver's seat. They are the ones making the decisions. They're the only ones doing the talking. Whether it be in the House of Lords, I was about to say, pretty much is, in the chamber of the House, in the Senate, in the White House, on the mainstream media, they're the only ones doing the talking. So the people, what have they got to listen to? Who's talking for them? So we have to wake people up. And that leads to something else. Who's talking for everyone else? There was another shooting in a school today. It was a teacher. He was the one that did the shot. No one was hurt. Thank God. But a teacher with a gun in a school. Popped it off. Check out my page. I posted it there. No one was hurt, not even the teacher. But we have a real problem in this country. What's interesting about the healthcare issue is that it's not complicated. It really isn't. It can be expensive, and expense is only a problem depending upon who is paying. You know, you want to buy $1 million house, you don't have $1 million, that's a problem. You want to buy $1 million house and you've got, $1 billion, it's not really a problem. So buying the $1 million house is not a problem depending upon who's paying for it. Having healthcare covered for everyone is a problem if we all collectively have to pony up the money to do it. Because for us, currency users, money is scarce. We have to earn it. And in an economy that has had depressed wages for 40 fucking years, coming up with extra money is really hard. I work in healthcare, and we struggle. We struggle to be able to get it through every month. We do it, but every month it's, don't want to do that again, except we do it again. But the federal government can pay everything. Everything. And they're not going to break a sweat. It doesn't matter. No matter how much the cost is, they can cover it. They don't have to think about it. Well, I hope they do, because it's going to be money in the economy. We've got to make sure there's not going to be inflation. But the point is that it doesn't matter how much it costs if it's the federal government paying. But we also have other problems that are not that simple. And guns is one of them. Now, I made a promise last week that I will never, ever, ever stop talking about guns. Every week I'm going to talk about healthcare. That's my thing. But if we have a system where anyone can go and buy any kind of armament that they want and shoot anyone that they want, and the person they're shooting can't afford the healthcare as a result of the gunshot, your right to buy a gun and use it trumps my ability to be able to have health care. You have a right to shoot me, and I don't have a right to actually be able to pay for the medical care. People in Las Vegas have to put up GoFundMe pages to be able to handle the results of their health care. Fuck that. How dare we allow a situation where that is even remotely possible? Where you have a right to buy a gun and the ramifications of your right decimates my life. Even if I don't die, I may as well be dead because I'm going to be fucking poor. I'm going to be bankrupt. I'm going to have to go begging on the kindness of strangers. So every week, we're talking about guns. Because every time we have a mass shooting, there's outrage for about a week, and then it goes away. Not this time. Because the issue with guns is not just the mass shootings. There's tons and tons of individual killing all the time. NRA buffs love to say, you fucking libtards, you live for this shit, you weep for the mothers at these schools. It ain't just fucking schools. It's also theaters. It's also Broadway shows. It's, rather Las Vegas shows. It's nightclubs in Florida. Fuck you. It's just schools. Armed teachers. How fucking dare you? You say that we love that shit, but we don't weep for the crying mothers in Chicago and Detroit and Baltimore. Fuck you. We cry about it all the fucking time. You complain because you think that your right to have a gun is so fucking precious, handed down from God himself. Well, God did not give you that right. Your right as an individual to have a gun was only settled 8 years ago in the Supreme Court. Every other Supreme Court decision, the last one being in the 1930s, did not affirm an individual's right to have a gun. It was in order for you to be able to call up a militia. It was a restraint on the government, not a right for you individually. That was settled law again and again and again. But along comes the fucking NRA. And they decide they're going to change the conversation. You have a right to a gun. You have the right to defend yourself. You have the right. You have the right. You have the right. But constitutional law was not on your side. So starting in the late 70s, early 80s, they started changing the conversation. And it took them a long time, but they finally got a Supreme Court that was going to be on their side. No more. In my opinion, and I will never apologize for this opinion, a gun is for killing. That is it. It serves no other purpose. It's designed, it's raison d'etre. The only reason it exists is to kill. And you can say that you're doing it in self-defense, and you might very well be, but someone is still dead. And we would rather, as a society, deal with the fact that we need to have guns as opposed to making society safer. And there's other ways to make society safer. Your gun is a killing machine. It serves no other purpose. To all of you that say that the mass shooter will have found a way to kill someone, probably. Someone who is determined to kill will kill. That does not mean that we need to make sure that all the tools for mass murder are available to them. It is our job to restrict it, to make it hard, to make it expensive, to make it fucking hard and expensive. A weapon of war in the hands of a citizen, to what purpose? If you can't get the job done with a handgun, a six-shooter, you can't get the job done. So why do you have the gun in the first place? Maybe your time would be best served making a more peaceful society. And yeah, people are going to come back and say, dream on, motherfucker. That's not going to happen, and I'm going to protect myself. Well, you are directly contributing to the very situation that you say you need the gun for. You are ensuring a more hostile environment. You say you need self-defense. It doesn't take long before you having the gun creates conditions that will make someone else feel threatened enough so that they need to have a gun. That's what the NRA loves. More guns. More guns. Show of hands. How many people are surprised that gun sales go up every time the NRA says, the government is trying to take your guns? Why are you buying more guns? The government is coming to take your guns. You want to buy more. Have you viewed the military recently? Do you have any fucking idea what you would be up against? Have all the AR-15s you want. You cannot successfully wage war on the federal government of the United States. It's not going to fucking happen. It will not go your way. How many times have we seen, camps of people filled with weapons, surrounded by the FBI? Not even the fucking military, just the FBI. How many times did the FBI lose in that gunfight? You guys always fucking lose. So what the fuck are you doing? You can't take on the military. You can't. If they want you, they're going to take you. And they can do it from halfway around the world. They don't need to go mano a mano with you. They don't need to match you gun for gun. They'll just whip up a drone and take you out from the air. No problem. So what kind of society do you want? We have problems around guns, and there is no one simple solution. Yeah, I want to get rid of guns, but I'm not an idiot. I'm not a fool. I know it's not going to happen anytime soon. Several things have to happen first. First and foremost, we're going to need to ban AR-15s and other assault weapons. I don't want to have the argument about automatic versus semi-automatic. You don't fucking need it. You don't need it for protection, and you can't use it to go up against your government. So why the fuck do you have it? You just like guns. Just admit it. You just like guns. You go to gun shows. You're looking at this. You think you're fucking Rambo. You're not. Give it up. There is no way that you will ever adequately protect yourself. Well, I need it for my home. You don't fucking need it for your home. People that break into your house want your DVD player. They want your TV. They want your valuables. They don't give a fuck about you. 99 times out of 100, you weren't even supposed to be home. They cased the joint. You weren't supposed to be there. Turns out you were. Now there's going to be a gun battle, potentially. Especially if you're going for your gun. You can't possibly be prepared at all times for an attack. If you're home and someone starts breaking in, at best, you got a 50% chance of getting to your weapon that is supposed to be locked away in a safe. You don't have a good chance of making it in the first place. So it wasn't protection. But assuming you do make it, statistics say that you're likely going to hit the wrong person. Professionals hit their targets reliably 3 times out of 10. Where are those other 7 bullets going? Where are those other 7 bullets hitting? Who's getting shot that wasn't supposed to? Your kids? Your wife? How hard's your prick going to be, even if you do successfully kill your intruder, who, by the way, was a 16-year-old kid, didn't want to hurt you, just wanted your stuff, because his father hasn't been able to find work in 6 months, because his economic prospects are basically the military or McDonald's. He's just looking to get ahead in the only way he knows how. And his reward for that is a bullet from you. So fine, out of 10 shots, you hit him once successfully, he's dead. What about those other 7 bullets? How much of a man are you going to feel like if one of them actually hit your wife? You don't need it for protection. Professionals hit their target 3 times out of 7. They're 3 times out of 10. Professionals under stress. I don't care how good you are on the rifle range. You're not under stress. That target is not hitting back. You're not under threat for your life. So you're not going to be able to use it for protection. Check out some of the old anecdotes from the old Wild West, the place apparently you want to be in. They will tell you that the quick draw, chances are, is not going to kill you. Because all their focus is on speed. Accuracy is what counts. The ones that live the longest are the ones that were able to calmly, under pressure, pull the gun, accurately aim, and shoot. Is that you? In the modern era? I doubt it very much. So you're not going to have the protection that you're seeking. You are inviting more death. And you are bringing it upon us. As you get a gun, more people get guns. People understand there's more guns out there. They're going to start buying guns. You have for yourself, my friend, a self-fulfilling prophecy. So first and foremost, all military-grade weapons off the table. You can have a handgun. Welcome to your protection. I hope it works for you. But no more military-grade weapons. That's it. That's first and foremost. Did I mention that the federal government is a fiat sovereign nation with its own currency that it can create as much as it wants? Buy back the guns. And it doesn't matter how much. Just buy them back. Buy them back at twice what they paid, 3 times what they paid, 5 times what they paid. No questions asked. Bring in the gun, fill out a form, receive a check. Will it get rid of all the guns? No. I don't believe that we will ever get rid of all the guns. But 2 things about that. First, a bullshit, chicken shit, motherfucking murderous idea to not even try because you think you won't get 100% of the way there. You do as much as you can. And you get as many of them as you can. They serve no functional purpose. 2, as we disarm the citizenry, so must we disarm the military, the police. We must not militarize the police. We must absolutely, with 100% certainty, make sure that the police are properly paid, are properly trained, and are properly vetted. It takes a certain kind of personality to go into law enforcement. It is a fucking hard job. I have nothing but admiration for anyone that wants to be a policeman. I have absolutely no qualms about calling them on their bullshit. I don't care how fucking hard it is. You do it 100% perfectly. 100% of the time. There are some jobs you simply cannot afford to fuck up. Medicine, airline traffic pilots, police, firefighters. These people have a bad day and someone dies. So the only thing that will fix that is money. And yet again, do we not have a government that is sovereign in its own currency? If it's only a question of money and dedication, we have the dedication. There are people out there that will do this. It only takes money. It takes resources. And the federal government has as much of it as it needs to get the job done. So fund the police to exactly the proportion necessary to make sure that we have a properly incentivized police force, that they have the best training in the world and continue to train. And they will not need weapons of war. Because we will also implement a federal jobs guarantee. Everyone that wants a job gets a job. So that 16-year-old that broke in, you just killed, that person could have had a father and mother that were employed doing something that they loved, doing something that gave them fulfillment, because we also have single-payer health care. They didn't have to choose a job based upon what kind of benefits it had, other than what kind of fulfillment and what kind of salary it had. So that kid's going to be able to go to school. Education! What a wonderful example of how we can get the federal government involved again. Because it's only money. And the federal government can create as much of it as it wants. So every school becomes a palace. Teachers are amongst the highest paid employees in the world. paid incommensurate to the value we place on their profession. Police officers who put their lives on the line. Teachers who are training the next generation. Doctors who are dedicated to saving lives. Doctors, nurses, technologists, everyone. If we value these things, if we value these outcomes, we will pay them commensurate. So now that 16-year-old kid has a family that is intact. More and more divorces happen because of financial constraints, financial arguing and bickering. Well, money is not an issue right now because the federal government made a federal job guarantee. People have got jobs. They've got good paying jobs. They got federal benefits with health care. Federal government's taking care of education. Kids have got things to do. We've got after-school programs. We're putting people to work. We're allowing for people to discover their better selves. We are allowing for people to create a better community. If you live in rural America, imagine what this could do to your community. You have got busted, broken down communities all over this place. That's not a reflection of what kind of work needs to be done in terms of like there's no work. No, there's just no one paying. But there's tons of work to be done if anyone were to be able to come in and say, look, I need this done, I need this done, I need this done, and I don't fucking care if I make any profit. If you leave this shit up to the market, you're going to have ghost towns. If you wait for people to create jobs, they need something in return. If you leave it up to corporations, if you leave it up to small business, they will be able to take a lot of it, but they can't take all of it. It's not possible. They need profit. And there are some parts of the country that just, there's no profit to be had, but that's where people live. And that's where the federal government comes in. Because it's not because there's no work to be done there. There's just not that much money to be made. And the federal government doesn't need to make money. It just needs to pay to the public purpose. So all across the country, we can have prosperity instead of austerity. Everyone gets to share in the bounty of this country, as opposed to just a few people over here. We do all this. We fund healthcare, including mental health care. We provide stability, economic stability. We take away the guns. Are we going to eliminate murder? Of course not. Are we going to eliminate mass murder? Probably not. But if we create the economic conditions, if we create these social contracts that say you have a job, you have fulfillment, you have health care, including mental health care, you have education, you have infrastructure, we have green energy so that we don't have to worry about, dying in the next generation, we can do all these things. We can create a better, more harmonious society. It's not the federal government doing it, it's the federal government flipping the bill so that it can happen. We make the better society. The federal government just pays for it. So remember, it's not a handout. It is the federal government creating the conditions under which everyone gets to thrive. And everyone gets to decide what thriving is for them. And the federal government picks up the check. It's not socialism, it's socialistic. Socialism means that the government owns the means of production. No, they don't. Private enterprise still owns everything. Federal job guarantee doesn't mean, that, your paycheck comes directly from the government per se. Private enterprise comes up with what effectively comes to the unemployment office. And they put you to work, and the federal government pays. Federal government just becomes an insurance company, the only insurance company, the only moral insurance company, because it's the only one that isn't looking to make money off of you. It's looking to make sure that you have money, that you have the environment under which you can make money, under which you can make a life. we make that society, who's going to want a gun at that point? Who's going to need guns? That's what we need to work towards. And it's going to be a multi-tiered, multi-front excursion. First, we get rid of all military-grade weapons. We have to. Because people are getting their hands on them, and with whatever is going on in their head, this is the task they're putting it to. So first and foremost, we have to get rid of them. They serve no functional purpose in civilized society. So you want to have your Second Amendment? First off, 200 years of judicial process says that it wasn't your right to have a gun as an individual. So fuck you. One Supreme Court said that it was, and it was recent. And it was only after 30-odd years of the NRA's rhetoric in your ear saying that it was. Which means another Supreme Court can reverse that. Happens all the time. So we get rid of the military weapons, single payer for all, federal jobs guarantee that includes all manner of mental health care. Fully fund this. It doesn't matter how much it costs. It doesn't matter. And it never will. Fully fund it. Make sure everyone has access to what they need. Education, infrastructure, green energy. We can create the society that we've always dreamed of. But we had been told was only possible if private enterprise did it. We were told that so private enterprise can be rich at our expense. We are the people. We are the government. And we have been lied to. Once we wake up, once we demand, we get everything we need. So that's it for me for tonight. I'll be back next week. Remember, each one, teach one. We got to keep having these conversations. It is very important that we wake up as many people as we possibly can. Share this video or not. Share other videos, but keep the conversation going. Make sure that as many people as you can come into contact with understand that the federal government needs no taxes. Your tax dollars don't go to X, Y, and Z. Make sure they understand that every time they say, well, I don't want my tax dollars going to this, that, or the other, they don't now. Your tax dollars only fund the currency itself. That's it. It's not taxpayer money. It is public money, if you want to call it that. Public money, public resources, allocation of resources. Those things are real. Taxpayer money, if we're talking about in terms of federal funding, aren't. State taxes, absolutely. A state is just like you and me and a corporation. They are currency users. But to a currency issuer, it is laughable that they would ever need your money back because it was theirs first. So wake up as many people as you can. Talk to them. Send letters to the media. Tell them that you understand. Every time they talk about deficits and debt, tell them that you understand. Tell them that you want Stephanie Kelton on there, that you want Warren Mosler, that you want Steve Grumbine. Tell them that you want to have someone who understands MMT on a mainstream media talking to as many people as possible. There's people out there that think we shouldn't waste our time. Fuck that. They currently have the largest market share. They get the most eyes. If we could flip them, if we could, we have to try. So by all means, get them on the Young Turks and get them on all manner of other, independent media, but don't stop. It's just a couple of minutes. Send up a letter, send it out. What do you think they're going to do if they get millions of requests about modern monetary theory? They're not going to completely ignore it. And it doesn't take long to do it. Anyway, I'll be back next week. I love you guys very much. Be good to each other. Good night.